economic, societal, and government upheaval, so you can stay ahead of the changes in our world and keep your family safe. Fortunately for us, we can recognize that we're at the precipice, a point in history where we can all see the cycle changing. Where we go from here is up to us. So let's start the conversation, and welcome to the show.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. Ransom had me in here. I'm in Tokyo, shooting on a train toward Mount Fuji. We wanted to talk about the rice shortages today in Japan itself, with the tomatoes and the cabbages going up triple in price. I mean, everywhere you look, there's just strangeness of food prices and food availability across the world. I got to speak kind of softly. I'm in a train with a lot of other people. We don't have a private cabin this time, so it is what it is. I can't see you. I can see myself, but I can't see you on here on the broadcast. But as we move through today, with so many changes about to occur in the United States, also here in Japan, over in Asia, all reflected and related to this change of government in America, what's going to happen? You know, we have these massive fires occurring everywhere right now, this incredible record cold where Siberian cold is now replacing the Arctic cold. That Siberian cold is coming from a place called Siberia over Russia. That's how far it's traveled. Mostly this polar vortex gets knocked off and it'll do its thing and just get knocked straight down from Canada. But this one's traveling halfway across the planet and, you know, making its way down. So many things to talk about. You're going to watch the background come in and out of focus here as the train moves around into a darker section where this gets like this was unthinkable 10 years ago, what we're doing right this second. I mean, 10 years ago, coming on a train to do a live broadcast, impossible. But I mean, look at the jumps in technology, and we're in the center of the center for technology innovation in Japan. So Ransom, take it away.
Looks pretty good there. I mean, it froze up for a minute, but it's pretty clear. That's pretty technological. They say that Japan is living at least 2 decades ahead of everyone. Ransom. Is that true? Yeah.
Am I even on their call?
Yes.
I think I have to jump off.
We'll be back with David Dubine in just a second. We are on the call. I guess the technology failed. He thought I wasn't there. Anyway, let's see here. I'll just send him a message.
He was initiating the call here. Ransom.
There you are. Yeah, we could still hear you. I guess you just didn't hear
Ransom.
us.
Ransom, are you there?
Yes. Let me see. I'm going to send you a message. We can hear
right there. It is.
We can hear you.
All right, Ransom. Still trying to connect back in. I lost all the 3 screens on that.
Let me add you. Well, I can't add you because you're already here. I can't add him because he's already there. Let me see what's going on in the actual broadcast. And then we'll check that out. Looks like I'm on there. So it's not me, it's him. You can blame Dubai. No, he probably just is not getting my audio through on his signal. There you are.
Back here.
You're there. We can hear you. Well, we could hear him. Now we're just looking at him. I guess he doesn't get that. He's not getting the messages. Let's see what's going on in the chat while we talk. You were live. I don't know what happened. Yep, he's there. See what you guys are saying. You hear both of you. Thank you. Over there on Rumble. What's your thoughts on this strange fog? I think nothing about that, really. Let me see. Let me tell him he's muted. Okay. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
All right, there you go. How much of that introduction did you pick up?
If you can hear us now, we were hearing you fine. I guess you just couldn't hear me.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you. I couldn't see you either, so I thought I was on the wrong call. But anyway, that was the introduction. Welcome to Japan. While we're cruising through, we're going out to Mount Fuji. Want to check out the rice fields and the rice production area out here. Since I was here, let's just go for a quick, trip and go see the mountain and whatnot. So the Japan rice shortage is a real thing. They're down 11% this year, and they're looking to be down something like 16% to 17% by next year, or this September coming up, and it's going to throw a curveball into everybody's stability.
Yeah, that's one of those commodities everyone everywhere uses.
Yeah, it is. It's far more than here because if you look at Bangladesh, those record floods that they had, biggest floods that covered the entire country. So I'm going to say nearly 100%. There's probably some high-level areas or highland areas that didn't get hit. So Bangladesh probably 95% down when the totals come in. China lost a good 20% of theirs from the floods. Thailand was struggling a little bit. And everywhere you look, India also had a lot of problems this year. So then, if there was here's the crazy thing I was learning about the carryover stocks that they had in the warehouses. It's kind of some moldy and musty stuff that they left in there just to give it a count on the tonnage. But they should have gotten rid of that long ago for animal feed or whatever they would have used it for, biogas or something. But it's been counted in the totals that they've been carrying over. Now when they're going to pull out like 50 million extra tons because they need it this year, that carryover stocking is going to drop probably 30%, and suddenly we're going to wake up and go, whoa, one of the top world commodities is suddenly not going to be enough for everybody. So if you don't eat rice, big whoop. But what if that same thing happened for wheat, and we suddenly woke up and go, you know what? There's no more wheat on the planet. All we grow is what we get from now on. Like, we're at that point with rice. So how does this put it into perspective on stability of society where rice is a main staple crop every day?
This is the Fuji 93 bound for Kawaguchiko. This train is full.
Well, right now all the rice prices are really low. So I imagine people are about to sell a lot of stock soon when the prices go up. Can you hear me? There it is.
Yeah, you think a lot of people are trying to keep it because what we found is these restaurants around here, we would see the signs that says like no rice cake available today, no rice for sale today. So even if you have the money, you can't buy it.
Wow.
So people are starting to, we wouldn't say hoard it, but they're like, okay, we have it and we understand. Even with money, you have the money, you can't get it because it just doesn't exist. Like, this is the point we're coming into, even tomatoes and cabbage were another one that were following the same. Okay, not available today. If you don't have money, we just can't get it to you. So we're at that point right now in Japan, which is a super developed, crazy industrialized first world at the apex of countries, and we're there now here. That says something about the state of the food stability of the planet.
Yeah, it's not good too. And we have all of these natural disasters in the US that are really crippling stuff. So I'm kind of hoping here in the next couple of weeks with the new administration, there may be some kind of turnaround. And I don't know if you got a chance to see this article I sent you about trying to rejuvenate the farming industry from the incoming president there. So they're going to do this farm recovery stuff is only starting in 2026. So it's still a year away before they start implementing things that might help the situation here in the U.S.
Yeah, in a year in a full crop rotation is, it could be a decade, it could be 100 years, because if you just don't have the food, it doesn't matter. You shattered the illusion that the stability will continue. Once that's broken, Humpty Dumpty don't come back from that. You have to. Our world is predicated and based on stability. We will get food this next quarter. We'll get food this next harvest. It's always been like that, except for the famine periods across the planet. And what happens during those famine periods? Well, people lose faith in the system. We've already lost faith in the system with Bonehead here these last 4 years anyway. But when it comes down to where suddenly there's not enough food and you just don't know if you can go to the store and buy certain items, like the supermarket's not going to run out of everything, just not going to happen. There's too many chemical ingredients today, and they can whip something up in a lab and whatever. There's a Pop-Tart or something. But in terms of these staple grains, wheat, corn, rice, sorghum, this sort of staple stuff that everybody eats, once that's difficult to get, like that's the bedrock, literally the cornerstone of a society is the staple grain that's eaten every day. If that were to disappear, people are going to start questioning a lot of other things. How stable really is it if your government can't get us our most basic of basic commodity? Then, useful are you? And this is what always starts. If you look through history, this is always the thing that starts the collapse of a government. They can't provide food for people. So where does that leave us? And, in a year, just one quick point there, Ransom, a year, that's a very long time in agriculture today. They're doing like double, triple rotation crops. Like to wipe out 3 rotations in crops to come up and, like I'm looking at an orchard down here. These are all orchard trees. But farm finance too, we talked about this a few times before. What happens if the farmers can't get their finance to come and get their seed and get their fuel and get everything in advance for the next year? If we got to wait for a whole year and we're going into an economic contraction, the farm financing, and you ask yourself, is it all baked in? Was this part of the plan as this transition occurred to let all this happen? Because there's so many excuses that make perfect sense now. But was it all a large stage play is my question.
I got something in my eye. I was going to ask you, they're talking about the next catalyst for the financial crisis in the U.S. is going to be the fact that with all these natural disasters, the insurance companies are no longer paying out on things from flood to fire. Now, how does that fit in when farmland starts getting affected? Are they not going to insure crops? Are they not going to? I mean, do you think this is really going to be something that adds on to a financial crisis that crosses over, that no one can trust the insurance companies to pay out if they have some kind of disaster?
Yes. And see, that's the thing. This morning I was crunching some numbers because I'd seen the reinsurers in California. They had like 23 billion or something of reinsurance on some properties, but they were looking at about 400. There's like, even if we're talking about California state, they still don't have enough money. They had like 230 billion total to cover 400 billion losses, but reinsurance, private insurance, still only cover billion. The same thing with the Federal Reserve. If you look at the amount of like federal deposits, deposits try to protect everybody under $250,000, they can only actually really pay out 1.2% of all $250,000. So what happens when they demand that you have insurance on your home, but then you understand they're not going to home? At some point, it's we're like, no, we demand you pay money to insure your home, or your bank is going to pull the loan on it. Well, we know. Yeah. We're getting to this duality here of a lot of things. Again, what about the stability of food, availability in our society? Okay, either it is or it isn't. And now you want me to pay for fire insurance when my home burned down? My home costs like $6 million, and you have enough to pay me out for like 300 to 1,000 of that 6 million. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, go set up my own lumber mill, and like, what am I going to do? This is what's happening to tens of millions of people. So I would say that if you're looking for a catalyst to start burning down the house, no pun intended, it'd be the insurance claim payabilities. The first one, some sort of event. They aren't just the single state operators. So if you look at State Farm, for example, or Prudential, or it's way beyond home. It's talking about car insurance and any other kind of like property insurance, jewels. If you have any kind of things for family, that you get extra insurance because you have higher value jewelry or something in the home. That also got wiped out in the fire, and you know what? There's just no money to pay for it. Look, this is a possible first, where they just, what do? Put their hands in the air. It's like, we just don't have enough. We bankrupted the system. Imagine what the perfect catalyst is. I don't know. Do you think that would be enough to start to trigger and take the system? Because I was looking at India too, working on this video today with the FDIC insurance. India only has enough in their equivalent program to insure 3% of the Indian, in India, like subcontinent, entire banking system as well. A lot of these continental banks are flipping back and forth for investments between. So what the American insurers can't pay them. Then we start getting the same trip off in other continents also. I'll leave it there because your mind can run with me on this experiment here.
Well, it sounds to me like very soon we're going to have a large international competition to keep their own foods and buy others as cheap as they can get it. So you're going to see a lot of political leveraging. And I was just showing everybody an article here from Zero Hedge that talks about the global outlook is cloudy with the chance of disaster. And they're citing a lot of stuff, but the food is not one of them. And I would think that would be one of the major things that we have to worry about, not only as far as the prices of commodities going up because there's shortages places, but the halt of trade between certain nations and other nations, which is going to exacerbate the military and socioeconomic issues that some countries are starting to have with the other, especially with this new competition of monetary systems. You might have to be with a certain monetary system for your country to get food. And that's just another big leverage that further divides the world into these two factions. So, like, I forget, it's the World Economic Forum, which, I don't really trust them so much. But it does tell me that they plan on having big problems, disaster. And they're citing stuff from geopolitical tensions to environmental challenges, which the only environmental challenges that I know about are really the war between governments and its people to be able to farm and use the land that they're on, which is a direct correlation with your belly and the farmers that are producing. So if they can't produce, if they're being stifled by government, and then you add on top of that real shortages in the food supply, and what you're talking about is one of the cheapest worldwide staples about to go up into price and be harder to get, which that obviously a big domino for the entire world's economics.
And I'm sure we could find a few other dominoes as well. You know, ridiculousness of bonehead cutting off and then reducing offshore drilling. I mean, America's going to be out there looking for more oil. I just hope that executive orders can rescind some of that, and we can start getting back to oil exploration. Now, again, I'm no fan of pollution and unmitigated, emissions into the atmosphere, and that's just straight up pollution. Forget CO2. We're just talking about just straight up smokestack stuff. Nobody talks about the military. They never point fingers at them. Nobody barely ever mentions large agribiz or corporations that are polluting everywhere, especially, giant shipping container companies running junk back and forth across the oceans. I hate the way that they always point at the individual going, you're responsible for everything. You're responsible. Dude, I'm just one dude out here. I'm like an ant running around, and these companies are producing everything. Y'all the ones that have the giant factories that nonstop never cease. So along that entire chain is where you would need to look for the disruption point. Where would it be, though? Okay, energy's one, food's another. I mean, can you get by without a new iPhone if it doesn't come from China or whatever for another couple of years? Probably. So if you boil the constituents that are blended or whatever it is in the States, that raw chemical ingredient by the 55-gallon drum comes in from China mainly on our medicines. I think made in packs in China and sent to us. We'll get a 55-gallon pack drum of some powder, and then a lab in America will squeeze it together like Glaxo or something. So think about those disruption points too. Like if our medicine starts to disappear and the finance is no longer stable, we're not getting payouts on insurance claims. And the whole thing for me is, do their seed fuel. People are going to have to start giving up the ability to get credit so we can be fed if this thing starts to trip off. And being outside the States for a couple of weeks, I just kind of let everything go because I knew we were coming to the real strange period right now. Oh, that's a pretty scene right there. Let's see if I can pull the camera down for you. There you go. But the way it looks, I stepped outside for a minute and I let my mind drift out. But now when I'm trying to step back into the news again, it's like I'm taking a completely different look on it. I've been desensitized by jumping out versus that continuous stimulus, right? So now when I'm jumping back into it, I'm like, why is it like that? It doesn't make sense. And that's only been a week, almost 2 weeks. So this whole stimulus thing, this mind stimuli, fear-based control thing that's wrapping in the influencers and the mainstream media news and offshoot news, everything's based around this whole fear. It's collapse, collapse, collapse. But again, there might be some validity to it. The new system needs to start. And Trump would be a perfect cat to overlook and oversee the collapse and, the reemergence and the remerger and the establishment of a new system. So I don't know. But there's a lot of failure points here that we could look at. And food being one of the main ones. Are you aligned with the BRICS nations? And now, knowing about food, are you looking at Ukraine the same way any longer? What about Kazakhstan? They're a huge swing producer for wheat. Are we going to see an invasion over there in Kazakhstan to grab their wheat fields? I mean, where do we sit with this?
I was going to ask you, you have an opportunity, and I know that over there in Japan is quite different as far as how civilization deals with emergency. There's kind of an orderly, honorable play out of events that would happen in Japan versus, and I hate to say we're Nostradamus, but how many times have we talked on this program about what would happen if you had to guard your home in an armed fashion? And that's exactly what people in LA are dealing with. They went through the whole plethora of scenarios that we've talked about over the years, losing their house, having to leave on foot, natural disasters that the government won't help you or can't help you with, and then all the way down to armed gangs trying to steal your belongings and your livelihood. And then also the citizen themselves taking it upon themselves to guard their own property despite the government telling them not to. So I was kind of wondering what you think about being in such a different extreme environment as far as the way people handle civilization breaking down. Because in my opinion, we would do better to have a society like Japan as far as it is when they respond to natural disasters. They don't have looting. They don't have disrespect. They try to help each other, children, elderly, a whole honor-based system that we could really learn from in the United States. But instead, you kind of see these headlines where every time there's a natural disaster, Americans are prone to eat themselves.
Well, I boiled it down to one thing. Homogeneous society, like 99% Japan is 99% Japanese. You got to realize how many multi-generations are still here, holding on to the old ways. A lot of grandparents here. They teach the kids some of the old ways. And there's unwritten laws and rules here. Like, if you're going to do that looting and thing after disaster, you might get away with it for a minute, but they've kept a tally of what you've done. You're always findable here. Your family is always included in your misdeeds. You can never escape that. Everybody knows everybody. You might think, okay, I live in Tokyo, but the neighborhood, they know who's there. And if you're in these smaller towns, if you start to steal somebody, as soon as that disaster's over, you're going to have a whole different set of problems to deal with. There's still an old code here, which I appreciate. Some things go without saying that, like the rule, it's lawless in America. It's a broken down society, pretty much. I mean, if you look at Venezuela or Cuba or something, California is the same way. And for them to tell everybody with such restrictive gun, say, oh, you can't even have one, and then, okay, well, these robbers and gangsters are coming in. You know, down in Tennessee, they would have been eliminated by now. But in California, it's something very different. Like, you can't even protect your property. I mean, you can't get your property insured. They're not going to pay you out. You're not allowed to defend your place. I mean, what's a word for that? At least here, there's still some honor left. Yeah, failed state, exactly. Like California is Venezuela. And I hate if that hurts anybody's little, snowflake feelings, but that's just the way it is. But here, there's still a code. It goes far deeper, man. It's a family code that goes multi-generations back. The whole thing is based on helping each other too. That's why a homogeneous society. Again, I'm gonna get crucified for saying it, but the more people are similar in backgrounds and in religion and race that stay together and like something like this, their chances for survival are far higher than if it's split up into 50 ways from Sunday. And, I know not a lot of people like to hear that, but what I'm seeing out here, the 9.0 earthquakes, 8.0 earthquakes, things are collapsed. Like they just had that one down in Kyushu Island. They got wrecked down there on that 7.0. People come out and help each other. There was no stealing. There was no looting. You get taken care of by the system. And I'm not going to mention the names of the people who do that, but there's groups of people out here that are set to keep society orderly. You don't step over those bounds or they take care of you because you've caused too much disturbance in the order. And at that point, society to remove you just caused too much the order of there's some chaos in it. I get it. But once you step over a certain boundary, you've gone way outside of acceptable limits to the point of if it kept going with a lot more people like that, the society would actually destruct. So there's sort of a balancing mechanism here. You can accept it or don't live here.
I was going to ask you if you've had an opportunity to find out what the Japanese kind of view is on the man-made climate change concept. Because I wanted to show you guys a minute. This is a map of California that shows every fire for the last 100 years. It's from 1878 to 1969, and then they re-updated it to 2020. And if you see right down here, this is why the insurance companies don't want to pay out, because this area will always have fire problems. And kind of the reason I brought this up is earlier today I watched a video of a Japanese neighborhood that had automated fire suppression systems that would just go off and blow water all over the houses in case of an earthquake or a wildfire or anything. But when you contrast that with Santa Barbara, all the way to Los Angeles, each one of these little colored areas is a wildfire that was started either by people, lightning, or as an unknown cause. But it's clear to see that this place, this whole area, burns down over and over again. And it's pretty consistent. I've looked through the map. It's like 1920, 1928, 1930, 1932, and on, all the way up till 2024, where the government completely acted like it was an unforeseen disaster, despite just having a similar fire 2 years ago, in which, by the way, Trump brought up cleaning the forests, making sure that reservoirs had water, making sure all the equipment worked. And then you fast forward, and since that time, we've given away equipment, we've sent it away, we've failed to maintain it. And on top of that, it's well known that this entire West Coast routinely has wildfires all the way back into pre-settled America, where the Native Americans were dealing with forest fires every couple years, just like they do in the modern era. And then on top of that, I wanted to compare that idea, because what I brought up earlier is I was watching a video how Americans were amazed that they went into an Apple store in Japan and everything was unlocked, everything was out, the phones were, available for you to pick up and look through. And using California for that example, there's not a single place in California now that doesn't have their valuables locked up behind locked shelves, and then on top of that, wired to the shelves. So we get to, in real time, see the difference of management of countries. And I kind of wanted you to speak to that. I'm not trying to trash the U.S. I'm just saying that over the years, we've developed a problem of shifting responsibility over and over again until no one is held responsible and no one is trying to foresee the future. And that's something I see a lot in Japan. It's not just innovation, but their ability to time travel to future problems and solve them now. And then I kind of wanted to get into how many robots you've seen.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. And the nothing's locked up. But again, it's that code. Even if somebody were going to try to steal something, if others would see them, like in the old days we did in America, probably in the 50s and 60s, they would stop them in the store and be like, "You can't leave. We're calling the police." Like the society, it helps police itself. When I say that, I'm not talking about a like a 1984-esque type of thing. It's like society works. Why would you want to break it? Why would you want to allow like one bad apple to start breaking it? Because once there's one bad apple, then there's two, and then we got California. So why would you allow it to go that far? And here, like I say, there's that check and balance of it. Some actions you're allowed to let the steam off. You're allowed to go and do all kind of crazy stuff that we can't do in America. That's fine. But again, what's allowed to go back on the states? Not a chance here. There's that check and balance. If you're disrupting it too much. That's the whole thing is people don't want crime here. They don't want to walk around a crime-ridden city. They don't want to have to worry about that like nitpicky purse snatching. Why would you even accept it? If you don't have to accept it, why would you start accepting it? If it's been like that for hundreds of years, why would you like this year? Because it's 2025, like we got to let everything just like break apart. It doesn't make sense. See, there's some things that are far older here because the society's been homogeneous for so long, that those core things stick through the centuries. And they just haven't deviated from the centuries, plural, that this is not allowed. That's too much disruption. Like once you start allowing people to steal from storefronts and run away, you're disrupting commerce from the people. But then what if there were a food shortage and that was allowed to go ahead and you allow people to steal food? And the other people went, they come together to help and stop that stuff. And I'm sure there's some higher crime areas in the middle of Tokyo somewhere. Never saw it in Osaka. No, I've been here, this is like the 5th time I've been to Japan. Never saw it in Sapporo, not even once. Walked all around Sapporo, like tons. Kyoto, never saw it there either. We went to Kyoto 3rd time. You just, wherever you go, day or night, whatever part of the city you're in, it's always safe. There's stuff always out in the front. Like it would be unthinkable in America to leave as much stuff out in front of your shop. But again, like, storekeepers are all, thieves get beaten bad or taught a very strong lesson. You don't come back here and do that in our neighborhood. And it's not like even turning a blind eye. It's to accept that the storekeepers are protecting the rest of everybody else. It's like it's not turning a blind eye. They would applaud them for doing that and beating the crap out of a thief. And that's where it still sits. Where in today, you can't even talk about the color of their skin, whatever. You can't tell them that they're from a different religion. You can't say anything. They're from a different country. Well, what kind of garbage is that? That we accept that? We've been brainwashed into accepting that? That's atrocious is what it is. So when you come and you start to look and say, all right, well, we need to take some of these ideals into consideration here. And, I look at it and say, some parts of the United States, again, like down in East Tennessee, a bunch of gangsters come in and start trying to rob shops in a small Tennessee town. They'd have a difficult time. The locals would step out and be like, you all can't do that. But in a big city, and predominantly, not to be finger pointing, but it seems to be certain states and certain cities that have allowed to go into the complete collapse phase. And I don't know why that's allowed. I just don't get it. It was never allowed to even take a foothold in here. That crack never even evolved. There's no crack where that seed can drop into that nefarious dark seed to even start growing and splitting the concrete, and that just sealed up tight. It just doesn't come here. Foreigners are not exempt either. You're an idiot foreigner coming here. They're going to tell you, you all need to behave. You're in our country now. You need to behave here. I know a lot of countries they don't, but here it's very much like show some respect, Things are very old worlds, and you can feel it. There's a very orderly sense to the way it was and the way it will stay forever. And in that middle area there's allowed to be some change, what we call modernity, where the robots come. I've seen a few robots. We've had the robot dogs are cool. Delivery robots, like every supermarket has a walk around little robot thing that asks if you need help. All the banks, supermarket, and department stores all have these they're about waist high, little white things. They cute looking. They just zoom around. I think they have little tracks on them underneath, and in terms of like real robots, where we've seen some like almost human skin looking, things. I've only seen those in the videos. I haven't seen that in real life yet here. But in terms of just like helper robots that are AI integrated. So like imagine putting ChatGPT inside a moving robot that can come up to you and then like answer questions based on Google LM or ChatGPT. That's the level.
I think we froze up there. He must have had a minute. But when he comes back on, I wanted to show you how we don't have to live where we're susceptible to things. And I had watched this video, I think it was about, I don't know, 2014, I think, where a guy was the only guy that had his house left after these Malibu fires a few years ago. Let me find it right here. Well, we reconnect with David in the background. Let me see if I can find it here. But anyway, I watched this video that was like a local news broadcast that showed this guy that had his house that survived. And David, are you back? Nope. He's frozen. Anyway, he was the only house that survived the fire. And the reason that he did have his house, that because he made everything out of flame retardant materials, because he knew he lived in an area with the Santa Ana winds and the risk of fire. So this guy built his house completely out of flame resistant, fire retardant materials. And for some reason they buried this video, this story. And I finally found a story that was written by his own, I guess, company. And other than that, the story just disappeared from the internet. And it kind of shows you that there are answers to these problems, but the people in the authority want to make sure you don't have the options to use that. Let's see if we got David back here. Hello? Are you there? Are you there? And we're about to, when we get him back, I'll throw that article up there. But we're about to have this polar Arctic blast. And I think he led on to that. So on top of the rice prices going nuts, cattle futures hit new record high as polar blast set to hit the nation's beef supply. And if you guys remember, we've had, I don't want to call it an attack, but misfortune when it comes to the food industry. If you remember, we had the fires there in Texas that burned up all the beef. They've had meat packing plants, chicken facilities, all these different things go up for one reason or another in flames. And then on top of that, you have the government destroying eggs, chickens, and cattle for various reasons that they claim are pandemic related or disease related. And if you can just think about all the things in the past 5 years that could kind of domino to this situation where there is very little food kind of circulating, or if it is, it's really expensive. And if you've been to the grocery store recently, you would know that this effect has already kind of taken place, where people are feeling it. Now, the idea is this new administration is going to try to fix some of those practices that led to these super high prices. But I don't know if they could get ahead of this, really. If there's just so many things adding to this potential situation, a disaster, if you will, of being able to supply the world with the right amount of food before you have secondary civilization issues. Now here, we're going to be real cold. I think we'll be fine. However, like every time, there's people that get caught out in it and are not prepared. But this is supposed to be, and keep in mind, this is in the era of global warming or man-made climate change. And it's going to be the coldest inauguration temperatures since 1985. So that's quite the thing here. Let's see what's going on. Let me see if I can add Dubai back in here. I think he's there now. Maybe. No? Very confusing. It says I'm on 5 different calls. So I'll try to resume that call. Let me invite Mr. Dubai again. Weird. It says he's already on the call. Maybe I can just hang up and redo it. Are you there, sir? All right. We need to hang that one up. Weird. Let me see what's going on here. Technical cannot rejoin. Yes, we will end this call. All right, let's try this rodeo again. Waiting for the others to join. I think that might have did it. There we go.
Yeah, I can actually see you this time. A little blurry on the screen. Yeah, on that first call, I couldn't ever really see you.
Yeah, glitched out and said we were on like 5 calls. So I just hung them all up and recalled. See how that worked out.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. Yeah, I could never reconnect back to you, but we just stopped in the coolest little station right here, like a little wooden old station. That yeah. And please remember, if you like this type of conversation, consider supporting us on Buy Me a Coffee. From last week, all the subscribers. We're going to read about a little bit of comments as we blast through here this last set of tunnels. But yeah, thank you for supporting us in our venture to try to continue to bring more information and try to make sense of this change that we're in right now. Yeah, cattle futures hitting the new record high. They're trying to say that it'll take 2.5 years to get your beef supply back. Okay, wait a second. All those CO2 agenda things to cut and limit beef production, and now they're telling you, beef will be back in 2.5 years. These are the things that they keep doing into the future. You ever notice that? The ploy. It's always going to get better, and then they buy themselves 2 years, and then things didn't happen the way it was supposed to. Oh, wait, just give us 2 more years. Or just give us 4 more years. But things keep marching in the agenda forward, global governance structure. And I wanted to mention that 1972 map, the 10 kingdoms. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but it shows the future world. This is the Club of Rome, 1972. They've done a map of the world in 2025. The start point to consolidate all these nations. You know what? I kid you not. Greenland goes with North America, with Canada, with the United States and Mexico. And now we have the Trumpster saying, hey, we need to get Greenland. But whoa. Whoever would have thought in their wildest dream that Greenland would come with the North American Union? It's on that map. 1972, Club of Rome, 10 Kingdoms map. And also, I was always thinking that China might invade Taiwan. Not 100%, just might, because they've been talking trash the whole time, going, we got to reunite this, that. And come on, you guys, you reunite what? When Taiwan was independent for thousands of years before you even, even though those thousands of years through the kingdoms, if you go through the Yuan dynasty, the Tang dynasty, the three kingdoms area, you go about that 4,000 years, no, they never tried to take Taiwan until just recently with Xi Jinping and like these whole Mao Zedong thing after World War II. What is with that? So for 4,000 years, it was its own independent thing, and y'all never messed with it. But then suddenly, in the last 40 years, you're like, "Oh, it's ours. So we need to take it back again." Like, what? Really? You had 4,000 years to try to keep it together, and you never took it, and then like now suddenly it becomes an important thing. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit is what I'm saying on that. Because if you look at that map, Taiwan goes with the Southeast Asian Union with Indonesia, the Philippines, and the rest of the Southeast Asian nations. Look, the little black dot right there, just below Japan. It was never intended to go to China. That was just to sell more weapons. That was nothing more than a fear play to get the military-industrial complex more using your mind to not protest selling more weapons across the planet. Because there's this next thing. Dude, it's scary. There could be this next thing. It's going to be the next one, the next invasion. Oh, they're poising forces over here. We got to support more. Another $1 trillion for the weapons over here. Yeah, at the same time, nobody ever points fingers for those same gangsters for polluting the planet. Now, do they? It's always you, the individual, the ant, is responsible for polluting the planet. Not the militaries running around. Not the militaries. Not the shipping companies. Not the mega factories. You, as the consumer, are blamed for what corporations and militaries are doing. It's nefarious and ingenious the way they flip the script and do a global tax for you, although you're just the end consumer. The advertising has been brainwashing you for 50 years to buy one, buy two, buy three, they're on sale. If it was such an existential threat, they would have had no more advertising. That's the first thing that needs to stop. Advertising. No more advertisements on TV, no more on YouTube, nothing. You can't buy a single thing. Period. Don't try to sell it to me or anybody. But how has that just continued for decades and decades of buy two, buy three? That map will show you that we've been used, brainwashed, fear-based, power button. And this is the reset map that we're going into right now. So Trump's going to oversee the redrawing of the lines on this map here for some of us in the United States. Other leaders have been, their scripted actor or actress part will be to take their nations to consolidate them into something else. Call it for what it is. I know, again, I'm going to step on some toes saying Trump ain't all saintly, and he's here for a purpose. And so is Elon. Whatever the purpose is, it's a restructuring and a reorientation of the planet. Now, that 10 Kingdoms map, I would ask you, what are the currencies going to be used to trade between them, and which ones are going to be set up as the food export zones, and who's going to get the food, and who's not going to get the food? Because you look at that, that's a crazy looking map. If I was going to redraw a world, that's a perfect kind of balance of, okay, there's food production here. If they were all together, they could, be one unit they could be their own literally independent economy. If everything went, and if we pull back and everybody just put up walls around each continent and each section of these like redrawn countries, if we just walled that off, they could be totally self-sufficient. Each one of those zones could be 100% self-sufficient. And if you're talking about, there can't be any more global shipping and all this stuff, you would have to redraw the map like that first. So you wouldn't need anything from anywhere else. That's the whole thing. It's planned out. This starts in 2025. That map redrawing and what you're seeing, the consolidation, that's a plan. 2025 to 2030 is where we go from here. So let's start the conversation, Ransom.
Yeah, that's kind of the point I was making before, that we're going to have to go into this where you can take care of yourself, where your neighborhood can take care of yourself. And that's the way it's going to have to be. Otherwise, we're going to have to take part in this do as we tell you system of how it's going to be. And I was showing everybody this house that didn't burn down from the Malibu fires because the guy used all of these flame retardant and, fire resistant materials, proving that the Santa Ana winds could just blow through there and burn all the brush and everything, leaving the house basically untouched. He was out there with a water hose washing it off. And so when I saw these new fires, I was thinking of that. And I went to the internet and I tried to find these old video footages. Nowhere on YouTube. It's been totally deleted off the internet. And I only found one article written by the company that the guy happened to work at that talks about that. And his house is still there today. And this is kind of what I was talking about. In Japan, they look forward to the future problems. And here, we try to ignore what's the inevitable and obvious.
Yeah, Ransom, we're on the break here. I can hear the music over us.
Oh, well, I'll play the commercial and we'll come back.
How do you feed your families when the shelves are empty, the stores are shut, and there's no food available? What is the fastest, easiest, and most productive foods to grow? What is the quickest way to get somebody who has no skills at all up and running and producing very quickly? If you understand that we're at a point in history where it is no longer optional to be growing your own food. If you're really freaked out and concerned because you've never grown food before and you don't have any skills, you don't know how to do that, but you know how important it is, then I want to let you know, however you stumbled here, you're in the right place. My name is Marjory Wildcraft. I'm the founder of the Grow Network, and I have been the female leader in the survival and preparedness space for the last 20 years.
How to grow lots of food, even if you have no experience, are older and out of shape. This is for people who want the fastest and easiest ways to produce healthy and delicious meat, eggs, and vegetables. Because you know that growing your own food is like printing your own money. During this webinar, you will get status of global food shortages, how long the crisis will last, how much space you need to grow food, easiest, highest calorie foods you can produce, a complete plan for producing all the food you need, how to get started today, regardless of season. Marjory will show you the fastest, easiest, and simplest ways to produce calories and nutrition, especially in a crisis and/or grid-down situation. The assumption is that you have no experience and you need to start producing food immediately. The most popular part of the webinar is the Q&A session at the end. So please come prepared with your questions.
Time doing and thank you for those who have been supporting us through the last work. Joe Burbine, thanks for making the show tonight. Well, thank you for being here. Least I can do is sit on a train, drink some white wine, have a whole bunch of different kind of Japanese. We went with the tempura for lunch. We got these, handmade tempuras or tempuras. Some eat on the train pretty easy. And Towser, you're rocking it harder than anyone, so I appreciate your work. Well, thank you for joining us. Again, it's all this the conversation between everybody. So imagine Joe and you and me and Ransom. That's 4 people that are having a conversation now. Not just like one person out in the wilderness. You're on it, and I look for your predictions so I can try to make the best of decisions moving forward. Coastal North, Maine, Massachusetts, New England area. Yes, it's not so much predictions. We just read the literature that's put out there. The plans are already put in place, like things we're talking about with this 1972 map. Okay, a lot of stuff was predicated and based on that 72 map, but they had to do many steps to get us there. And if you've seen the world, once you see that map, you understand that's where we need to go from 25 to 30. Then things make a lot more sense. Why is Trump talking about taking Greenland? See, these documents are like Bank for International Settlements. They always talk about CELA and the different 5 continental units that are going to be so much like central currencies, but they're going to be their own interoperable trade units within the continental sphere that can be swapped amongst continents. A little bit different, not exactly CBDCs. It's going to be like a combination of 5 countries that create their own like fast moving payment token, and then that can be swapped as a single one after it settles for the day as like one giant large unit that's swapped off to a different company or whatever it is. So like I say, a lot of this stuff we're just reading the documents and putting the info out. And Miss Tobik, thank you for the 5 double espressos. You guys need mucho espresso, of course. We do. We probably drink like 10 a day. It's like chipmunks on a hamster wheel, moving around. Thanks for your time and research and concern. Yeah, that's because we're all in it together. We're all in this together. I live on the same planet you do. I could run here. It's still going to make it here. I can stay in America. It's going to make it there too. There's like literally nowhere to run. It would be as if we were going to say, I'm going to find somewhere where electricity never makes it out there. Those lines never make it out there, and that's where I'm going to go live. Like you could have run for a while, and you'd still be running because always the next place wants to bring electricity. Once we get into something like this. And Diane, most intrepid content on the webs. Ooh, deep comment there. Thank you. Leveling up. And Pamela Pollock, excuse me, however you might say that. Thanks for the great info. Look forward to every video. Boom, we're trying to bring you the best, and I thank you for coming in for every video. That's awesome that you're watching. And again, look how many people want to be part of the conversation. So if you think you're out there alone, you're not. Look at all these people that want to have these conversations about what's coming in the future. How can we all work together to find the best possible solution to stop some of this madness? That's truly why Ransom and I are on, spending our valuable time doing this. There's no greater cause right now. There can't be. If you think there's something better than trying to figure out how our world's being manipulated and how you can protect your families and keep them safe through this transition beginning now, if you can find something better to spend your time with, well, I'm glad you found it. I'm really glad you found it. But for me, this is it. This is the last stand for humanity, including myself. So for me, it's all 100% and nothing moving forward. So Ransom, thanks for joining me back in here. And I know I hogged a bunch of time there, but floor is yours.
No, I was just gonna get corny with you because we have the coldest inauguration since 1985. And in the midst of all this climate change, I come across these really cool articles like Bundle up. It's going to feel minus 40 once the coldest temperatures in the year arrive. But this one's a really cooler one over here. Basically, you don't have to worry about, the cold temperatures because we're going to freeze ourselves in cryostasis to make it through the next one. And evidently, you would think if you're worried about the world burning up, you wouldn't invest in your future into being frozen, right? So that's kind of corny, but I wanted to also show you that speaking on the food prices, we got egg prices, record shortages reported at all the supermarkets. And then you got this back and forth between the outgoing administration and the incoming administration as far as it relates to civilians being able to use natural gas and other petroleum products to do their normal everyday life. So you got Trump mulling executive orders protecting gas stoves from radicals' left Green Crusade. But then over here, Biden quietly bans most gas-powered tankless water heaters. So you got all this back and forth, and then you have the EU natural gas prices rally higher amid Europe cold snap. And we were talking about this a couple of years ago, that this little fight in between basically Russia and the United States to fuel Europe is going to be bad for Europeans, because what happens to them is they get lost in the competition of political agreements, and it's not like a competition-based thing where Russia and the United States keep trying to provide lower and lower prices to heat homes, not only for us in the U.S., but for those people in Europe that, by the way, a lot of elderly people are sitting in these old houses with fireplaces that they can't use and these little tankless water heaters that give them like 5 minutes worth of a hot shower. Meanwhile, I'm sitting over in New Mexico and I got a 50-gallon hot water heater that runs off natural gas. And I'm in there, for like an hour if I want to be with hot water. And then I see articles talking about, they're trying to get people to convert to these shower heads that have LEDs that tell you that you're bad for the environment because you were in the shower too long, so it turns red. But I was kind of joking about the freezing theirself, but people are really reading and getting into these new AI ideas, and one of those ideas is that you're gonna, live forever. Don't worry about the planet. Don't worry about your legacy. We can provide you with an artificial future where you could just freeze yourself. You can be part of the AI system. So we're getting into weird areas of where they want to take our civilization. And you happen to have a good opportunity to maybe see a little bit of where that's going. Because I know in Japan, a lot of these programs are already 10, 15 years ahead of here, if not more. And we barely got approval from the FFA for Amazon to start using these mid-side drones to deliver products, which is exactly what we were talking about when everybody was having the drone craze, that things are about to change a lot in the way that things are delivered and the commercial airspace as it is. And, in another point that we kind of predicted is that drone warfare would increase, but not only that there would be a new technological competition to deal with this new threat. And Russia just unveiled a wireless, it is wired. It's a Wi-Fi-less, so it's not connected. You can't track it because they're running like 900 feet of ultra small fiber optic cable. So it can fly like, almost a mile away without having a connection. So you can't track it. You can't sense it with other drones because there's no signals coming from or to the drone itself. So we're already seeing this massive competition in warfare technology. And then at the same time, I was going to show you, it's just all across the board. Eggs, meat, bread, everything's going up. And then you're talking about worldwide global shortages of essential staples that millions of people use to get by, and also stockpile. Like myself, we have big bags of rice, beans, and stuff like that. And when we're not doing well, we just go ahead and eat some of that stuff. So it sustains us through high prices, or if you're lacking a little income for a while, you have these staples to protect yourself. But it looks like those are going to be ever increasingly expensive and hard to get compared to what we're used to being able to do, if that makes sense.
It does. And how much is everybody willing to accept change or go through a bunch of different hoops and hurdles to still get something that's minimal that would continue to allow you to enjoy life? That's the thing here. You can only work so many hours before the life quality is degraded for the point where you're just working all the time, and you see people fall asleep like hanging on stuff. They're like, it's just, you can take it too far sometimes. But the same thing, if you take too much away from people, it's going to put them into a mental state that it's not going to be conducive for stability. And those fly-by-wire devices that you're talking about, I've seen a couple military applications where they were on some, shoulder launchers that went out 2.5 miles on a fly-by-wire. So drones would have to respool that wire as they were landing and taking back off again. So that would require an entirely different, spatial awareness, because if they were coming in through trees, or like right now, you're coming in, you can't see some of the twigs and things. There's no leaves on it. So if the drone were to make a mistake and come in fly-by-wire and then snag onto a twig by accident that was nearly invisible, then, that's kind of unusable. I haven't seen any drone deliveries yet here. I think it would be the first. Oh, there's Fuji right there. All right. Well, that's pretty big and massive. What? Let's put this up. Let me spin you around from Mount Fuji. Can you hold on the microphone for me, please?
Can I check out Fuji, please?
Oh, I just lost one. Fuji. Can you see that? Oh, wait a second. Okay.
Yeah, see it. Well, for a second we did.
Oh, here you go. Yeah, we're coming on. So there you go.
There it
Fuji
goes.
right there. You see that? Come on, give us another second. Here we go. Here comes a wide open spot in just a second. Hold on. Yeah, would you climb to the top of Mount Fuji to be able to get some daily sustenance? I mean, there you go. Yeah, so this is one that if it erupted, it would they put like a 90% loss of life rate in Tokyo, because the rail lines would be covered with feet of ash, and there'd be no way to get supplies in or out. All the air conditioning would clog up, and nobody would have a way to bring fresh air into those high-rise apartments. So I've seen a few studies. If this one were to erupt in sort of a VEI 6 to 7, that the loss of life in Chiba and Tokyo would approach 90%. Keep that in mind for a second. Yeah, so nothing's rumbling here, so we're safe. But if it were to, like Sakurajima went off over this last 2 weeks, like crazy. Sakurajima's just been going incredible big. And then all the earthquakes down south around Kyushu Island. So something's rumbling on the crust here. So John Casey always had talked to me about Sakurajima being the supervolcano that he was most worried about on the planet. Nothing else. Sakurajima was his number one priority to look for in terms of rumblings that cause the most disruption of food production globally. If one were to go off, Sakurajima. So I'll leave it there.
So I guess you guys are right out here on the rail.
He's got a map.
At it. Yeah, and I can see your rail line right here. So they're cruising up the rail line there. right next. You guys got a pretty good view from the train there. I guess it's about to get better here in a minute. You on mute? Did you mute? No? There you go.
Yeah, that's why I lost my sound input here. Can you hold that again?
Cool. Anyway, yeah, they're right rolling on the railroad right over here, where they got a good view of the Fuji. Yeah, you're good. We can hear you.
I can hear him down here, not on here.
Do. I'll let them line that out. We could hear you, though, for a second. I was trying to find the article where they're talking about we'll be fine because we're all going to be frozen. Anyway. Nope. I could hear you for a second when you were messing with stuff, when you said I could hear them down here. Anyway. How are you guys doing out there in TV land? Let me go check on you guys in the chat over here on Rumble. There we go. For a second.
Okay, back on it.
There you go. I can hear you.
So I hear him out of here. I shouldn't be able to hear him out of here.
Technology.
I can hear you a little computer, but
we can hear you. Take it away.
How much are people going to... There we go. How much are people going to be able to change during these times? I'm really looking at it as if I hadn't seen any of these maps or plans or anything, I would think a lot of what we'd seen in the last while was organic. But you know what? Looking at this, it's changed my perspective on my entire life. Like, everything we've ever known is an illusion. None of it's been real. That's the whole point. It's all been fake. Everything you're seeing geopolitically was already planned. They just put the right people in at the right time to get you to agree or disagree to continue this agenda. There's no better word for it. Agenda moving forward. That's it.
You don't want to freeze yourself though.
Still here.
So showing everybody that this is how they make you worry, but then they say, don't worry about it. We'll be able to save you with artificial intelligence, and we can freeze your bodies, and you could outlive the apocalyptic disaster, which to me is complete fairy tale. This is don't prepare, is what this is. It's like ASMR stuff here. And then meanwhile, the Caribbean has been unusually warm, they say, while everybody else is freezing.
Caribbean's been unusually warm. Waited for in about another week or so, and then Cuba is going to be in the 40s.
Yeah, right. You notice that
or even the high 30s. So for those of you going, oh, what? You know, I had somebody write me a strange comment today, like, when in the world is it normal for snow to be in Central Florida? And I was like, well, probably around 1640s, the Seminole peoples, the Seminole Indians, had a name for the phenomenon in the 1640s, the Maunder Minimum. It was called the Great White Rain. It snowed in Central Florida, and then the Everglades froze in, thin ice, but, excuse me, several years in a row, the Everglades had frozen over. So it's not unprecedented by any means. It just means the cycle's coming back again. That's what it means. So when is snowed a normal thing in Central Florida? During grand solar minimums in times of really low decreased solar activity. That's the answer. So if it was snowing in Central Florida, do you think it's going to be snowing further south down around Cuba? What if it snowed in Cuba? Then what? Oh, it's global warming. This is a ridiculous thing. Like, they actually are brainwashing people into believing that they've told you the planet was going to warm, get hot, and now that it's turning cold and all their predictions are wrong, that it's getting cooler, that somehow the warming is causing the record cold. This is the state of our brainwashed sheep society, where you actually been fed something your whole life of it's going to get warmer, CO2 is causing the planet to get warmer, and when we get record cold, wave after wave after wave, disrupting agriculture, that suddenly that cold is because of the warm. Now put that in perspective for a second. That's what they're selling you. And there's a bunch of idiots, hook, line, and sinker, by the millions, buying that. Because they don't think for themselves. All they can do is think for what they're being told. Now, I'm really trying to put it in perspective, like, are they lying to themselves? At what point do you realize you've been lied to and you're like, wait, I got to stop accepting the lie? He told me it was going to get warmer the whole time. And now we're into like record cold event after record cold event. At some point, the psyche of humanity is going to have to change here to a more discerning type of thought process. It's cool to believe a lie until you understand it's not a lie. And then at that point, you're lying to yourself. And that's even worse than you being lied to. And so that's where I sit and like, damn. People are willing to believe the lie and lie to themselves, then they are willing to come to truth that what they've been sold their whole lives was not true. And then they need to start questioning a lot of things like, well, if this is not true, then what's the next thing that's not true? I don't know, man. I'm going to leave it there because we're coming into some bamboo forest here, and I want to check out the bamboo.
Right. Here, let me put you back on, and I'll talk about it. Kind of people are ignorant to the fact that one incident, like this one on this article, 200 years ago, the sun mysteriously turned blue, and scientists finally know why. And that was because we had a volcanic event somewhere in the world. They don't even know where it's at. And the whole sky got dark and the sun was blue. And it kind of made me think of that because you were talking about Fuji and possible eruptions over in that part of the world, how fast it could change just overnight. Let's see here. Well, he gets his audio. So this volcanic eruption, it wreaked havoc on the environment. And you got this German guy talking about how the sun to be appearing in various shades, purple, green, and even blue. And this was due to excess sulfur dioxide. And he was talking about how, it rained again and again. It was desolate weather, and it rained all night and all morning. And then it was cold as winter. But the only problem was this was in the middle of the summer 200 years ago. And people forget just one little burp from the right spot could send us into, I guess, a global warming bonanza. And if you've been watching the news, they've arrested several global warmers out in California. So they were out spreading the global warming goodness. And that's why you have people out there disobeying curfews and different things so they can protect their property, because global warming is hitting hard this year. Oh, what happened? There we go. I'm here. We can't hear you again, David. Can't hear you. We can see you, but we can't hear you. There you go.
There we go. Okay, I had that thing on mute every time I'm trying to get the speakers back on. They're flipping before. Anyway, check this out.
What is going on here?
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm sorry, my scene got messed up or
Okay.
something. We'll just
His
stay
first book was Cold Sun. If you look up the original book cover of Cold Sun, it's a blue wave angstrom image of the sun. He was trying to tell us that the sun was going to turn blue again. And here you are 200 years further in the future, and they're trying to figure out why the sun is turning blue. Well, it has something to do with the light frequency when the sun steps down off of its whatever present state it is. Now, for some reason, John knew that this was going to turn into more of a blue tinged or a blue hue coming from the sun. Whatever research he did, he never, really gave me the intimate details of it. But he's like, look to the book cover. And I was like, I just didn't quite understand what he was saying. I'm like, okay, Cold Sun. Okay, I got it. But I didn't really get the blue part until that article came out. John knew in advance that the sun was going to turn more. It was going to go from the yellowish we know into the white, and it's going to go blue. So if you think whatever color spectrum changes next, it's going to be blue, and that's going to freak people out. If the sun turns blue, then what?
Right.
People aren't going to go to work if the sun turns blue, my friends.
Yeah, they were
They're
talking
going to pull
about
their money out of the banks.
purple,
They're going to
green.
cash in their stocks and their IRAs and 401ks. Our sun turns blue. That everybody's going to go, it's the blue kachina. Yeah, people. Sorry, and people just aren't going to. Our society's going to stop functioning if the sun turns blue. That's all I'm going to say. Just get ready for that. First day it's blue. You better be in front of everybody else. That's all I'm going to say. I know it sounds selfish, but hey, those that are the most prepared are the ones that survive. We're here because the ones who got most prepared survived, and that's our lineage. Those who were like, whoa, what's going on? Their offspring aren't here any longer, and they're not carrying on lineage. So it is survival of the fittest, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And
Ransom, I'm going to have to sign off right now. We're just getting ready to get off the train,
okay,
and my battery's getting low, so I got 2 reasons to sign off.
cool.
But anyway,
We'll
thank you
talk to
for coming on the journey with us today on the train here.
All right.
And Fuji awaits.
Can't wait
Bye
to
for
see
now.
some of your footage. Bye for now. Oh, we're still on. I think there we are. We'll just switch over here where I'm at. So yeah, this is a pretty cool thing. 200 years ago, the sun mysteriously turned blue. Scientists finally know why. Volcanic eruptions that wreak havoc on the environment also produce some pretty wild optical effects. As I was saying down here in the article, it says purple, green, and even blue due to excess sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere. So if you think if the sun is correlated to volcanic activity, you can see that would really freak people out if the sun did something that caused volcanic activity here that produced, some of these gases and elements that would completely change the spectrum of light that people were seeing. And I kind of wanted to get into this because we talked about many times about the drone warfare going back and forth. So you have China upgrading as fast as they can on some of their drone designs. But I saw an article earlier about how China was going to unrestrict, rather. So let's go to Zero Hedge right here. So if you own a DJI, you would know that you can't go to certain places because the Chinese software will not allow you to record some of these UNESCO heritage sites. It won't allow you to fly in certain no-fly zones. But for some reason, the DJI world is about to have a little change where your geo-fencing is what they call it, is going to be turned off. So if you own one of those drones, you'll be able to just fly anywhere you want at your own risk. And it seems funny to me that this is happening right before I predicted that when the Trump administration gets in, there's going to be all these new rules about who, how, where, and when you could fly drones, which is going to eliminate most of the civilian aspect of being able to fly drones. And, I like flying my drone, but I never liked the idea that some government in another country was using their software to decide what I filmed, when I filmed, and especially where, which is, just off the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and see what you guys are doing in the chat. Since we got about 30 minutes to kill here, I'm going to go over to Mountain High Time, see what you guys are saying in there. You do you. No, I'm just joking. I jumped in on something. So what do you guys think? I see a new naked wrench there. I'm going to add you as a moderator. Consquatch? There you go. And then skip over here to see what you guys are saying on Rumble. From moving all my food. That would make it worth extra money. Speaking from experience, at least I should have more muscle mass now. Have no idea what they're talking about. Sounds very interesting. And if you want to check out new people or new conversations, you can switch between any of the feeds that we have. I think there's like 2 Twitter feeds, a Twitch feed. There is Rumble on 2 channels. We also have Mountain High Time, American in 4K, the Raven Wolf channel, and Civilization Cycle YouTube channel, formerly known as the Mini Ice Age Conversation Podcast. So if you guys are over there, you could switch over to one of these other platforms, meet some like-minded people, and have new conversations. And by the way, if you like the conversations we have, I know that they're a little word salad sometimes because we're restricted about talking about certain specific ideas that are frowned upon by the tech giants still, except for maybe on Twitter and Rumble. But since we have the other feeds going on, we can't talk about certain medical things or certain touchy conspiracy theories. However, we still talk about them. It's just, we have to do the Kamala Harris word salad and be unburdened by the things we were burdened by, mainly censorship. So if you like this kind of, convo or the stuff that we talk about here, feel free to go over to one of the other feeds, meet some like-minded people, or buy us a coffee, or find the Patreon link or the PayPal, and we'd be very appreciated of that to continue to do the show, because this is pretty much our jobs. We kind of, research things, and I wish I could get into more detailed stuff, but we're kind of limited because we're still using the YouTube feeds. Matter of fact, we've kind of discussed just removing the YouTube feeds so that we can openly talk about things. And I'm going to try to do my best word salad here without actually getting in trouble or banned or getting anybody in trouble here. Bundle up. It's going to feel like minus 40 once the coldest temperatures in a year arrive. And I wanted to go over here to some articles I had open. If you've realized, sometimes I put articles out before things happen or right around that time. So for the last couple weeks, I've been putting these articles that talk about warning people about gathering in large areas. And then, they're saying doing it is an act of defiance. However, then we see stuff like on New Year's Day, cyber trucks blowing up and people going on rampages, performing their own Mardi Gras in New Orleans. But they did put this idea out in the public before inauguration. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet. We still have, 4 more days for things to get lit and wild. So let's just move on from that. And I'm sure by now you guys have seen all of the fire, so I won't get into that. So a little lighthearted article here. Drinking coffee only in the morning lowers your risk of death from any cause. Now, they did this big study about people that drink coffee, and it seems that people that wake up, they get their day going, they drink, 2 to 5 cups of coffee in the morning to get them going, have the opportunity to live longer versus people that just drink coffee all day, like myself. I mean, I drink it all day, so it's like whatever. And here's a cool one right here. Do we live in a special part of the universe? According to tenant scientists called the if I could talk right, cosmological. We'll just skip that because I can't say it. Cosmological. There we go. I got it out. Principle. Our place in space is no way exceptional. Actually, it's quite bizarre. And this article gets into the idea that, we've always thought that our galaxy was a, typical galaxy, and that maybe we could look out into space and see other galaxies and infer certain things by that. But it turns out our galaxy's weird. It's atypical, and it doesn't have the same things as other galaxies supposedly of the same age, like, big bodies circling around it. So indeed, we actually live in an atypical universe. So, I mean, not universe, galaxy. So it kind of makes you wonder what other things in our galaxy, including our own solar system and other things, is actually atypical and not the norm out there in space. Something to think about. And this is something from my show that I wanted to bring up because I have been just delving into the history of hominids, otherwise humans, and the date for humans continually gets stretched back because, well, different hominids didn't all show up on the planet at the same time, and it's looking like advanced hominids, like Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, Denisovan, and others, have been roaming around this planet for hundreds of thousands of years unchanged. They didn't all of a sudden evolve from one type of hominid into another, but instead there was just many different hominids at different levels of intellectual capabilities, athletic capabilities, inventions, and other areas. So they keep stretching this idea back into the past. Here's one, 115,000-year-old human footprints where they shouldn't be. And I have a feeling that they're going to find a lot more of that coming at you, where you're going to start learning about other humans that existed and alternate origins, if you understand what I'm saying. Scientists mystified by massive structures found deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, showing everybody that our Earth and the tectonic plate idea is just not the way it is. Things are different. There's stuff going on underneath. There's different densities, gravities, all this stuff. So the interconnected energies that come from the sun and our Earth are a pretty strange thing. And you might look forward to further seismic activity coming from anywhere on the planet, and indeed deep within the Earth. Things are going on you can't see, which may domino into things that we do see on the surface, kind of like Hunga Tunga. They don't know where the pulse that actually cracked the subterranean or sub-ocean, kind of like a volume tank that was in Hunga Tunga. But when it got hit by this wave that seemingly came from inner Earth somewhere, it cracked this cavern and ocean water flooded in, creating the biggest explosion that human beings have ever, been able to see or monitor. And thank God it wasn't somewhere that was super packed with population. Imagine some kind of explosion like this in Asia, Europe, or, the Middle East, or the Mediterranean, or even here in the Americas. You might have a whole different outcome from a massive explosion like that. And I'll get into this further on Saturday. And we'll just keep going with the Caribbean has been unusually warm, and that's not good. But has it really? I would bet money that if you look back into its history, you're going to find out that this is a normal thing that happens every so often. Just like in the Americas, just like the fire where I showed you on the map, that place is a fire zone. It repeatedly burns down. The Santa Ana winds and fire due to lightning or whatever causes it will do these big burns over and over again. And California, if rebuilt, is going to have to keep this in mind and start building with materials and technologies that prevent entire neighborhoods and communities from burning to the ground. Unless you just want to go and freeze yourself, and then you don't have to worry about it, because you could get in here and freeze your body and outlive the apocalyptic disaster with this idea that's been being pushed since the late 70s, I think. Timeshift describes itself as the world's first cryo-preservation facility, and it's based on cutting-edge AI new crypto-preservation techniques. The idea comes to fruition. Cryopreservation could allow cancer patients to freeze themselves until medical advances. Now, the only reason I brought this up is to go a little woo-woo with you guys. If, as many people believe around the world, you have a consciousness or a soul that leaves your body when you die, what happens to these guys that freeze themselves and are technically dead? If they revive them in the future, are people going to get disappointed because those people don't have stories of the afterlife? Or what if it's not, like we think, and the new consciousness that wakes up is not technically the same consciousness that died when they were frozen? I don't know. That conversation can get pretty wild. But I wanted to go back to the Malibu house that was prepared for one of the state's worst disasters. This guy, Philip Voigt, packed his new dream estate with 5 bedrooms, a wine library, and even a fire-safe feature every fire-safe feature that he could think of. And when the Woolsey fire came, he's the only guy left. And it makes you wonder, why haven't they been building all of the houses like this? As you can see, this entire hillside is gone. Not a tree in sight, not another home in sight, all burned to the ground. But his house, still there. And I thought they had more pictures of that house. But yeah, this is where we need to go. Don't worry about the government. Start using innovation to your advantage by yourself. Now, I get that these materials are probably expensive, but then again, do you want to be a victim of one of these thousands of fires that have taken place in California? If you look at this map right here, look, it's just fire after fire after fire, and each one of these little colored zones is a fire from a different year. Here's one from 2006, cause debris. That's all it says. Then you get this pink one here, 2013, unknown. But a lot of them are lightning strikes or arson, which seems to be, going on right now in California. And here's this drone that I was talking about. A weapon resembling a toy telephone is changing the face of warfare on the Ukrainian battlefield. So basically what this is a drone with a giant spool on it with this super fine fiber optic cable that dangles from it. So these guys can fly out hundreds of miles, or not hundreds of miles. They can fly out miles using this unmanned aerial vehicle, but you can't jam it because right here it is, 6 miles of fiber optic cable. So it removes the radio signal communication between the pilot and the drone. And so the drone operator can just VR himself right into anywhere. Now, the only problem I see with this is that this right now, how it sits, can only be used for surveillance and intel gathering. Now, when they can replace more weight on this thing, then they can take it out and boom, boom, from a string far away, 6 miles away. And here for all you conspiracy theories, this is from the Daily Mail, conspiracy theorists. BlackRock billionaire Larry Fink issues dire warning about the future of LA after its fires. So they're going to want you to not move back. They want to buy all this up and change it to something else. And if you're not a goldfish, you know what the article I was talking about a minute ago about large gatherings. And let me see if I can share this. Since I'm alone here, I think I can share the sound here. Yeah, here we go. I think. I thought I was already on this call. Whatever, here we go. And I think if I do that, you guys can hear it.
I just will say one last word, which is I hope this is my last time at this podium, at least for a little while. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, the only thing that would bring me back is an unexpected event in the next few days, which, as you all know, is totally possible given everything you've seen over the course of the past years. But if
Oops, wrong button. Anyway, that sounded kind of almost like a veiled threat. I don't know. Just weird. That's the outgoing guy. He's saying worry about it. I don't know if we should worry about it, but you should worry about it. You know what I'm saying? But bundle up. It's going to get cold. And if you live up in there, I hope you have something to burn. Here's this Chinese drone, the DJI, what I was talking about. If you own one of these, you are now not restricted. You could fly that thing. So I'm wondering if that's to push legislation or China just wants to see what people will do if there's no restriction. What kind of intelligence can they get from a drone that has basically 8 cameras on it? Now, you can only use one for your footage, but all of the infrared sensors on there are infrared cameras. So everywhere you fly that thing, it gets footage from each one of those sensors. It actually has a little calibration app. And when you get into that app and start calibrating, you can see that you can see yourself in infrared. And in fact, those sensors that are supposed to be for geolocation and spatial awareness for the DJI or for the drone, it actually can take and receive and transmit large amounts of infrared video. I just, to drop that on you. But to close off, I guess, with the last 10 minutes, I'm not going to say that I told you so, but we did mention, scenarios in which humans would have to defend themselves and their property. And it looks like they're doing just that in California. Right here. Armed LA residents patrolled neighborhoods in violation of evacuation orders. And if I can find the other article here, it was kind of talking about the same thing, where people are just done being victims and they're going out there on the streets. And this is no advice or anything like that, but they are taking their future into their own hands. And when they do that, they have better odds at civilized survival, if that makes sense. So no matter where you're at, no matter what, event is happening, you need to be prepared for every scenario. And if people in this hurricane or these freezing or these fires were prepared for every scenario, I believe they would be a lot better off than anyone else. What do you guys think about that? Let me go look in the chat. We have a new sub here, Linda Scooter, watching the planets line up. That's awesome out there. You can add like a Nikon and really zoom in on Jupiter and its moons, but I can't ever get like Venus or Mars focused in. But that's cool. What are you guys doing over in the Rumble Civilization Cycle stream here on the Adapt 2030 channel? I think soon we're going to be flipping over to the Civilization Cycle page on Rumble. So if you're not subbed to the other channel, do that, because I'm pretty sure in the future our shows are going to be limited to the Civilization Cycle channels instead of like my own personal or, Adapt 2030 or whatever. And Open Your Mind 2024 says exactly, pew pews. Escape from LA documentary, Viv B there. And I'd like to thank all you guys for watching there on Rumble and over on YouTube as well. What do you guys think about that? It's going to cost you more in taxes. And people keep telling me about these fogs. Now, this is a weird thing because there have been examples of the U.S. government misting things over populated areas, from bacteria to viral components to toxins. So, it's not unheard of, but I don't think that's what's going on right now. It's kind of like the drone thing. Every 2 weeks there's a new thing, and it seems like the world kind of is in a cabin fever situation where they're really susceptible to something new, and they want something new. So no matter what happens, there's a bunch of people thinking that it's the end of the world. But the fact is, there's never going to be an end of the world. There's going to be earth changes, undoubtedly, because we got a long history of earth changes on the earth, and there's going to be cataclysms, and there are going to be people that die in these cataclysms, but the earth ain't going nowhere. It's going to keep on trucking just like it did before we even showed up. And Johan says, Venus reflects too much light, and Mars, that's why. Yes, they're quite bright and quite close. And actually, Mars is like too dim to focus in on, and Venus way too bright. So it's ironic when I get some of these bigger planets out there like Saturn and Jupiter, and I've been able to focus in on them with the regular camera, which really is mind-blowing if you think that, years ago people were just looking through telescopes and can barely see these blurry images out there in space. Wonderful stream, Ransom. Say hi to David when you get a chance. He's an incredibly free-thinking man just like you. Well, thank you. We're free thinkers here. No reporting on the Mexican fires. I did not even realize there were some Mexican fires. That's kind of racist not to report on them, huh? Just joking. Mexican fires. Mexican firefighters watch for hot spots from the Palisades fire. Nothing's coming up but California. Except for this one. Fire breaks out at U.S.-Mexican border 11 hours ago. So, yeah, it looks like you guys are in for a treat. More treats. Not unforeseeable, though. As I showed you that map. The entire coast is known for these fires. So the idea that people just sit in this little bubble, forget about it, and then act like they have no idea what's going on when a fire starts, it's, kind of sad. Especially when those people are the people that are supposed to be, protecting you or whatever. Wow. I don't see it. Uh-oh. Am I still on? Yes. Skype's acting weird. It says I have like 5 conversations going. So who knows what's going on? Let me see if I can find this last article I wanted to talk about here before we go crazy. If you thought the peace deals in Israel were going to happen, and not so much. Netanyahu postpones. They say the other side already reneged on it, but it's what they say all the time. This is interesting. Supposedly, a lot of immigrants are self-deporting because they're worried about being deported, which doesn't make any sense to me. Wouldn't you want a free ride? If you're worried about being deported, why would you go pay for a plane ticket when you know you might get a free one-way trip? Just saying. Doesn't sound, like too smart. For the pocketbook, I mean. So, we're going to have an interesting inauguration here. Big old concrete barriers and fencing surrounding the White House. Now, why do they need that? Because, things are crazy, and they've done everything they can in the past, I'm going to say 10 years now, to I got to hang up on the radio people. And I guess that's all for us tonight. Sorry about that, whoever I talked over for a minute. The commercial, probably. Anyway, I think that's all we got for Civilization Cycle. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share buttons on the various platforms. And see us again next Thursday, 10 Eastern,